The moment my grandmother's voice cut through the dining room, sharp and shaking, I felt my body turn to stone. "I asked you a simple question," she said, standing at the head of the Thanksgiving table, her hand pressed flat against the polished wood. "Don't stand there like you don't know what I'm talking about." The smell of roasted turkey still hung heavy in the air, mixed with butter and sage and something burnt at the edges. Plates clinked softly as someone shifted in their seat. The clock above the sink kept ticking, loud and impatient, as if it were counting down to something I hadn't prepared for. Every eye in that room turned toward me. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. And then, without thinking, without planning, I heard myself say the words that would echo in my head for months afterward. I have no idea about it." The silence that followed was worse than the yelling. My grandmother stared at me like she was looking at a stranger. Her lips pressed together, thin and trembling, the way they did when she was trying not to cry or scream or both. I could see the vein in her temple pulsing, and for a split second, I wondered if she might sit back down and wave it all away. But she didn't. Instead, she let out a short, bitter laugh. "That's what you're going with," she said quietly. "After everything?" I stood there, my hands clenched at my sides, my palms damp with sweat. I could feel my mother shifting behind me, close enough that I sensed her breath on my shoulder. Someone cleared their throat. Someone else whispered my name, but I couldn't tell who. In that moment, I felt small. Smaller than I had felt in years. Like a child caught doing something wrong, even though I couldn't have explained what that something was. And as my grandmother shook her head slowly, disappointment etched deep into her face, I realized this Thanksgiving was never going to be remembered for the food or the laughter or the way we usually ended the night playing cards around the table. It was going to be remembered for what came undone. Before that day, my life was quiet in the way you only notice when it's disrupted. I was the dependable one in my family, the one who showed up early and stayed late, the one who remembered birthdays without reminders and brought side dishes no one asked for, just in case. I lived alone in a small, tidy house about 20 minutes from my mother's place, close enough to help but far enough to breathe. My mornings started the same way most days. Coffee brewed strong enough to wake the dead. A slice of toast, usually forgotten until it was cold. The hum of the refrigerator, the distant bark of a neighbor's dog, the sound of my own footsteps moving from room to room. I worked as an office coordinator for a local insurance firm. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and left my evenings free. I liked the predictability of it. Files where they belonged, schedules neatly arranged, problems that had clear solutions if you took the time to look. Family was messy. My mother, Elaine, had always been gentle to a fault. She apologized when other people bumped into her. She carried guilt like it was stitched into her bones. Ever since my father passed away, she clung tightly to routine and to me, though she never said it out loud. And then there was my grandmother, Ruth. She was the spine of our family, even well into her late 70s. Sharp-tongued, sharp-minded, and fiercely proud. She had raised 3 children on her own after my grandfather died young, and she wore that survival like armor. Ruth didn't forget things. She didn't let things go. And she didn't suffer fools gladly. Growing up, I had been her shadow. I followed her through grocery stores, held the cart while she compared prices, listened as she told stories about a time when money was tight and promises were tighter. When she spoke, people listened. When she disapproved, you felt it in your bones. So her yelling at Thanksgiving wasn't just embarrassing. It was unthinkable. Thanksgiving itself had always been her holiday. Even after arthritis bent her fingers and slowed her steps, she insisted on hosting. The turkey had to be basted every 30 minutes. The gravy stirred constantly. No one was allowed in the kitchen unless they knew exactly what they were doing. This year was no different. I arrived early, as usual, with a sweet potato casserole balanced carefully in my hands. The house was already warm, the windows fogged from hours of cooking. Music played softly from the radio, some old soul station Ruth loved. She looked at me when I walked in, nodded once, and went back to her pot. Nothing felt wrong then. We moved around each other in familiar rhythms. My mother set the table. My aunt fussed with the centerpiece. My cousins drifted in and out, laughing, checking their phones, stealing bites before the meal was ready. Ruth didn't say much to me, but that wasn't unusual. She saved her energy for later, when everyone was seated, and she could survey the table like a general inspecting troops. If there was tension that day, it hid itself well. I remember noticing small things now, looking back. The way my grandmother watched me a second longer than usual when I passed her in the hallway. The way she sighed when my name came up in conversation. At the time, I told myself I was imagining it. I always did that. Explained things away. Smoothed over rough edges before they could cut. Dinner was announced, and we took our seats. Plates were passed. Compliments were given. Someone spilled cranberry sauce, and we laughed about it. For a moment, everything felt exactly as it should. Until my grandmother set her fork down and looked straight at me. That was when the air changed. She didn't raise her voice at first. She asked a question, calm and measured, about something I wasn't prepared to answer. About something I didn't think she knew. About something I had convinced myself would never come to light. And when I hesitated, just a fraction of a second too long, she stood up. The rest, as they say, is history. Or at least, it was the beginning of a truth I wasn't ready to face.